All right, everybody, as promised, we are live and ready to go with another new webinar topic for this week. Hopefully, you've all been enjoying the podcast guests recently and the other broadcasts that I've been doing. So tonight, like I said, I want to do the best strategy to reach and sustain your body recomposition goals. Now, usually when experts and people present titles like that, you're going to tune in, you're going to get a bunch of training advice and diet advice and counting grams and calories and macros and apps and all the rest of it. But if you know myself and my work, then you know a lot of the times what I do are the things that are preconceived notions, preconceived beliefs, thought traps, these kind of things that prevent people from getting to where they want to be. And that's the kind of thing that I like lecturing on, because after 4 decades of doing this now, what I always see is that it's these undiscussed elements, these misconceptions that prevent people from getting to where they want to be, and no one talks about them. Everyone talks about the magic formula, the magic formula, the magic formula, but nobody ever talks about these things that I talk about. So I like getting into them. I like talking about them. I like, hopefully, to get even one aha moment from somebody means a lot to me. So that's tonight's webinar is going to be about. Hopefully you'll all participate. Let me know you're out there, by the way. Throw some emoticons across the screen or whatever, and hit your share button. So, and the best strategy to reach and sustain your body recomposition goals also applies to my followers who are also coaches. So it applies to how you get across this message to your own clientele as well. So that's a really important thing, that I'm not always talking to the person who struggles. I'm talking to the people who help people who struggle. So that's really important as well. So if you have any comments, by all means, drop them in. I'm going to get on with the webinar. Of course, I got a whole PowerPoint thing to go through, and hopefully it'll lead to some insights, and you have some comments, and you'll talk back to the screen, let me know what's out there. And I'll be more than happy to stop what I'm talking about to get into it, because it's important that people not only understand these concepts, but think them through, talk them through. So if you feel like commenting in the middle, that's good with me. So I'm going to get right to it. We're going to get right into it. I am just going to bring up the PowerPoint. Sorry about that. And then we are going to get into it. So let me know you can hear me. Everything's good. Let me know you can see my PowerPoint presentation there, hopefully. And then I'm going to get right into the conversation. So the best strategy to reach and sustain your goal, whether you're a coach helping other people or this is actually talking to you. Because lately, let me tell you, and just in the last couple months, maybe, I've had 3 clients come back to me who used to be with me years ago, and they've come back to me, re-signed up for coaching because they fell into other thought traps. They went back to old habits, things like that. So that's why I am doing this and want to get this stuff going. So Amy's just saying hello there. Great to see you do your thing live. Well, join in, Amy. Hopefully you'll participate. So I'm glad I'm loud and clear. Donna says I'm loud and clear, so that's all good. So yeah, I just want to get right to it, and hopefully you can see all that. And with the numbers that we get, it should be good for interaction. So the first thing you want to address in your own mind, or if you're a coach helping other people, I'm not going to keep saying the coach helping other people thing. Let's just assume that. But the first thing you got to ask is, do you really want to change? Do you really want to understand what gets in the way along the way? And that's what a lot of people don't. They jump right to the conclusion of, I have a goal. Well, you got to think that through. How serious is your goal? What are you willing to sacrifice to have to your goal? And what are your thought traps that prevent you from reaching that goal? So that's one of the important things as well. So the first secret, what I call secret to the best strategies to reaching your goal, is information is not knowledge. Now, this comes right from Einstein himself. Information is not knowledge. Now, a few notes here to think about. because people, we're in the information age. We think that gathering information gives us the expertise we need to proceed and do what we want to do, but it doesn't. And I talked about that in a video last week. So no one ever learned to drive a car or ride a bike by reading a manual. No one ever became an expert in any field by only studying about it and reading about it. And so we have all this weekend certifications, and we have these new, like, someone operates their own university. And we have all these things that are going to try to tell you that information is knowledge. But after a certain point, gathering information is just pretending that you want to change. You're starting out to do something, sure. Like I said in a previous video, your mind is a search engine, but there's no point in having Google as your home screen if you never use it to put it into action to search for something. But when you do, the searches that yield the best results are how-to searches. So not what about searches. And I'm going to get to that. So after a certain point, you got to stop gathering information and you have to act on the information that you have. I advocate stripped down, unplugged versions of information will take someone a lot further than the continuous gathering of a mountain of information that you can't sort through. So if you really want to change, but you struggle to do so, or your clients do, the truth is you can't just focus on and rely on information, new information alone. How many times do you need to keep going down that road? And I'm going to go through all this point by point. I'm going to get deeper into it. More often than not, along with that new message, you need guidance, and you need support, and you need accountability, and you need consistent interaction with someone who can keep you on that new message. That's the difference between just gathering information and a DIY approach to permanent change. Doing it yourself, there's very few people that actually ever really accomplish that in real terms. So you need guidance, you need support, you need accountability, and you need consistent interaction with someone who can keep you on that message and keep you going in the direction that you want to head. And this is gonna really foment as I get down the slides, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Detail. So a lot of people say, no. And I know what you're thinking. I just need motivation with all that new information. Look, anyone who says I'm hiring someone for motivation is someone who isn't serious about their goal to begin with. Motivation comes from within. Inspiration literally means in spirit, inside, coming from within. So people that are gathering information and looking for motivation within that gathering are kidding themselves. So you follow social media influences and stars, celebrities, or whatever, but does that really take you to permanent change? If you're someone who's struggling and you're listening to this because that's you, who I'm talking about, what's the best strategy for sustainable transformation, then you know that you need more than motivation and information. Motivation and information, you've had all that before. What happens to them? Well, they usually fizzle. They usually go down a drain. These are the things you have to think about, and you have to transform into something else. So that's what you need to consider. You need guided, directed action, actionable circumstance. So let me say that again. You need guided, directed action. So think about this. Actions that yield results will give you far more sustainable motivation than will gathering information and looking at pictures of other people who are doing it and have done it already. So why are the people, here's a question, why are the people that I coach who have been the most successful at sustained physique transformation also the same people that have stayed with me the longest in a coach-client relationship? That's something to consider. Most people think, oh, I'll find the recipe and I'll do it myself. Well, the recipe and the chef are different things. And being able to sustain a long-term transformative experience is something different. This isn't like going to the local hardware store and doing it yourself, fix it at home. This is a whole different thing because the mind has to change, behavior has to change, lifestyle has to change. So these are important parameters. You need directed, guided action. So here's one of the things I wanted to use as a personal story, personal example, if you will. Who is Dr. Lorraine Schneider and why does it matter? Well, you can look this up after if you want. Some of you are probably looking it up right now. But Dr. Lorraine Schneider was my undergraduate and graduate thesis advisor. And a lot of people think my first mentor was Bill Pearl. Bill Pearl was my only mentor in the bodybuilding physical fitness world. But my first actual mentor, even though I had many coaches in sports growing up, was Dr. Lorraine Schneider. For both undergrad and graduate thesis, you're assigned a thesis advisor. And why a thesis advisor? I remember back then being so naive. That's what I thought to myself, because when you're in graduate year of university and when you're doing a graduate degree, like a master's degree, your curriculum is laid out for you. You know what courses you have to take, and you're given the reading material that you have to do, and then you take your exams, etc. So for me, at that naive stage, I was always thinking, well, this is redundant. Why do I need a thesis advisor? I don't need someone to hold my hand. Because like I said, the curriculum was already set, kind of like you already have your diet and training program. What can go wrong? But having a thesis advisor is different. A thesis advisor edits, they guide you, they recommend things. Read this, don't read that. If you read this, it's going to take you in a different direction, but the argument you want to make is this. Read this instead. Edit here, expand there, explain this part of your thesis better. It was guidance and direction and accountability, because of course I would have to have chapters due at a certain time, yada, yada, yada. But she also made sure not just that I was doing my assigned work, but I could go to her with personal issues, obstacles that were in my way, things like that. So she was my first actual mentor. And what she supplied to me was a very soft-handed guidance and direction to my thesis. And why that mattered was thesis was supposed to be, my undergrad thesis is supposed to take a whole year. It's supposed to be a whole academic year. I was done my rough thesis by Christmas, and I handed in my final thesis by February week off, reading week. And I ended up getting an A and winning a scholarship for it. And no way I would have got through that with her. So even though my curriculum was set, even though I had the reading material I had to read, to have the guidance and direction of someone to help you from start to finish to beyond was something that you can't ever underestimate in terms of value. I think, Perry, you might want to comment on that. But yeah, I'm going to get into, so that was the first thing. Dr. Lorraine Schneider is someone I remember for the rest of my life because of who she was to me and how she was to me, which is even more important. So guidance and direction, that's what is missing. If people really want the best strategy on sustainable physique transformation, it's third-party guidance and direction. It's not magical training programs and magic diets, etc. And it's certainly not gathering information. So here's secret number 2. That people just blow by. It enters their mind, it leaves their mind. But if you do the research and you look at the research, we know that these are the things, that the obstacles in the way of anybody making a sustainable change in their lives. Habits are hard to change. Now, look, many people buy my books, follow my articles, maybe even take my online courses. I do all of those to help people, of course, and that can be great. You can learn a lot. But you'll likely not retain much of it, and especially not retain much of it over a long haul, and likely not internalize it at all in a way that can affect the change that you seek. You'll likely just slip right back into old normal routines, merely out of comfortable habit, right? Am I right? Do you not revert into old habits, especially when stress kicks in, things get hard, that kind of thing? Perry's just making a good point here, and let me just post that up there. And Perry's just saying the third party needs to be a real live human and not an app or a Facebook group. Facebook groups are nice, that sense of community, but you've got to watch. I had this conversation myself in a recent podcast with Krista Scott Dixon. You have to be aware that community is a two-sided coin with an evil side, because a lot of the times these Facebook groups, even the ones that are really, really well intended, they lead to the inevitable compare, contrast, compete, which sucks the life right out of people. You start comparing, contrasting, and competing with other people that you see. And we know this. We know now that Facebook envy is an actual psychological neurosis that's being treated. We know now that the longer people spend on social media, it correlates with greater degrees of depression. So that's a different kind of support. Like Perry's saying, the third party needs to be a real live human, but it needs to be intimate, and it should be one-to-one. In other words, if it was so easy, let me just get that out of there, Perry. If it was so easy now to just gather information and get support online, and you can get free workouts everywhere and free diets everywhere, why are the prices for coaching in every valued industry going up and up and up and up? Because it's irreplaceable value, guidance and direction and accountability beyond just gathering information. So you have to keep that in mind always. Very, very important. So it's not just learning a little bit and then, okay, I'm on my own, because habits are never actually replaced. This is what the research shows. You can have one habit, a new habit that becomes more ingrained and becomes the feature habit, but the background habit that you're trying to get rid of still keeps replaying. It's still there to take over. You never actually get rid of old habits. They're still like old tapes that are playing, and they're willing to come back into focus anytime. So that's the big one there. And Daniel's got a great question. And Daniel, I'm going to answer that at the end, because if I answer it now, it's going to take me too far off script. And I don't want to do that. But keep that quote in mind that you see up there on your screen right now. The chains of habit are too light to be felt until they're too heavy to be broken. Is that not true? And that's a very, very dangerous place to be. So that's the thing. And then you end up in what I call the futility circle. So it goes something like this. You expose yourself to something new, some new idea. Oh, I'm going to do keto. You get all excited and motivated by it, right? Oh, the new group class is using kettlebells. You try to adopt it, and then you realize it's not so easy peasy. Then what happens? You slip right back into old routines that no longer serve you, are like old comfortable jeans. It may be time to throw them out, but they're too comfortable to just throw out just yet. And is this not a pattern that you see that you've done before over and over again? And yet people keep looking for, what's that next magical solution? Oh, what's that next vogue trend that I can jump into? What's that next shiny object that they're showing over here? So it ends up that you're going through the futility circle without ever looking at preconceived notions and habits that need to change, and how hard habits are to change, because it takes a habit to break a habit, and that old habit still keeps on file, ready to come back. So the above sequence here you're seeing in the futility circle is why one-on-one coaching can be so valuable. Beyond support and accountability, coaching helps you stay on track by not falling into old mental habits that then lead to old actual behaviors and old routines, and round and round and round you go. You must know people like that, and you've probably been there yourself. For instance, I get weary, I get uptight when some person who really wants to lose weight, and they've struggled forever and trying to lose weight, and they'll write me and they'll buy a one-time program and a one-time diet, and they'll think they'll go it alone, never addressing in their minds the power of habit and a predetermined mental agenda. That's the thing that really has to change. They can have the best program and the best diet in the world, and if they don't understand that guidance and direction, then old habits, feedback loops, futility circles kick in, especially when things get hard. And of course, they're going to end up thinking that another diet and program failed them, or they failed another program and diet. So you have to realize that those are the things that have to change, and you're not going to change them yourself without getting outside your own head. One of the things that Dr. Schneider always taught me when I went with her with problem A, problem B, problem C, you know, this research didn't make sense and that research didn't make sense, was I was always inside my own head, and it took her as the third party to challenge my thinking to get me outside my own head. And I see that over and over and over again with my clients that have been doing this 4 decades now. It's why I got into social work, because I was really good at it, really good at this, getting people out of their own heads. But people don't understand that that is what is the essence of permanent change. It's getting out of your current thought habits and your current behavioral habits that then follow. So these are really, really important things to consider. So coaching is relevant beyond just accountability and support, because one-on-one coaching gives you repeated exposure to getting outside of your own self-sabotaging head and helping you stay consistent and on point with the new and different message until such a time that old mental habits are replaced with these new ones. So that's what ended up happening to me as a young undergrad. I was full of my own nonsense. Dr. Schneider helped me become a completely different person merely by guiding and directing my academic projects. I went in there trying to earn a degree, and I came out going from a boy to being a man. And a lot of it had to do with the guidance and direction that she gave me in under the realm, under the umbrella of being a thesis advisor, but was so much more and so much more beyond that. So people think, no, there's so much information and I can do it myself. But we know, for instance, I'll go to the next slide here. Since research proves that habits are hard to break, then we need to develop new, constructive, and productive habits that we won't want to break. And that's the thing there. And that almost always requires guidance and direction and support outside of your own head. Otherwise, you're confusing guidance and direction and support with willpower. And willpower, we know, is an exhaustible resource that's not very quickly renewed. So that's another factor that people do not think about, factor in. It's a blind spot that people just think, give me the right information and I'm good to go. And yet how many people have done that over and over again? So we really got to think about habit loops and how they work. So constructing new and better habits always requires guidance, direction, and support. It's like that for kids. It's even more important for adults because adults have longer, bigger imprints on their habits of thinking, their habits of doing, their lifestyle habits, et cetera, et cetera. I'm going to give you another example. I had a neighbor. I didn't know this neighbor very well, but passed them all the time and hello, how are you? And I noticed one summer, about 5-6 summers ago, this neighbor lost a lot of weight, like at least 50-60 pounds. So stopped me and of course wanted to talk about it. Was very, very happy about it and proud of himself. And I congratulated him. And then the more he talked, I was like, this is not going to last. Did it himself. So once again, the do-it-yourself weight loss thing. Congratulated him, pat him on the back, and sure enough, within a year when I saw him, he gained all the weight back. So my key here is, what is the best strategy for sustainable achievement and one that you can build on? So without that in there, it's really, really important to understand that it doesn't matter. The diet can be great, the diet can be lousy, but if you don't have the context and the primer within which to work, like I said, Dr. Schneider changed me as a person by being my thesis advisor. And the difference between Dr. Schneider and the neighbor I'm talking about, me, is I had the mentor, I had the coach, I had the third party outside guidance and direction, and the neighbor didn't. And without ongoing guidance and direction, guess what? He got there, but he couldn't stay there. He was what I call a weight loss tourist. And we see that all the time. So guidance and direction are what create new and better habits. If you're going to fight against old habits, guess what happens when you do that? You all know what happens when you fight against old habits. That's what keeps them alive, because you're fighting against them. Therefore, they're getting louder and louder in your mind when they need to be getting lower and lower in volume to the point where you can just change the channel. So very, very important that you understand the difference. Otherwise, it doesn't matter how good the protocol is. So the question there is, aren't you tired of the habit loop of reading this and hearing that? You make a little progress, then you go backwards, then you're wondering why, then you retrace that same circle all over again because you hear about something new, or someone at work is doing this and someone at work is doing that, and then you end up tail chasing for years and years and years and years. So the reason so many of my clients achieve and sustain a completely different physique is because they stay with me so long as coaching clients. So that's the important thing, because listen, there's always going to be obstacles to face along the road to sustainable change. That's life. Coaching helps you learn how to navigate those obstacles, just like Dr. Schneider helped me as a young, impetuous, immature kid navigate the obstacles that came up in my life that really weren't obstacles. They were just stories that I told myself. And it took a third party to make me realize these were just stories I told myself. And it's just like changing the channel. I can watch a different program on a different channel and change the story in my head. So very, very important. Now, along those lines, I keep saying the ones that have stayed with me the longest, sustainable change, things like that. Like you see Aaron Chagall with his wilderness workouts, and you see JP and all these, I can talk about people till I'm blue in the face, but you have no idea how many times I've heard back from former clients who tell me, somehow I just got away from what you taught me and I got sucked into this, I got sucked into that. Coach, help me get back on track. I need to sign up for coaching again. 3 clients in the last 2 months have come back to me with that exact kind of sentiment expressed. They lost weight, they did fine, they thought they could do it on their own, but when they did, they lost that third-party guidance and support, and they went off the rails thinking they knew better, so they just try a little of this and a little bit of that. And that's the difference. That's why so many clients stay with a coach for years and years. The coach keeps them on message, keeps them directed, keeps them from getting distracted by that next shiny new object that can derail them and all their progress. Because Vogue trends, they're going to come and go. They need to come and go because industries like this are built and sustained on Vogue trends. They need new and improved in order to sustain the industry. Otherwise, you can't have conferences and symposiums. And you always got to make it sound like there's something new to talk about and there's something deeper and better. And this is what gets people derailed. All right. And this is why it's so important. This is why I believe so strongly in the one-on-one coaching relationship. Yes, the plan will work when you work the plan, but coaching gets you there faster, more efficiently, so that you have the tools to not fall back into old habits down the road. Listen, if I didn't have Dr. Schneider in my corner, I never would have ever finished my undergrad or graduate thesis. I might not have even finished school. Not to mention I won scholarship awards for both, and I was winning bodybuilding contests at the same time. So I was winning scholarships. I got the highest grade for my thesis that was ever given in that department. I got one of the highest grades in the whole faculty of arts and science. I won a scholarship, but more important, it changed who I was, because where I came from, I could never go back to. I was never going to be that kid again, and I was never going to be that young, typical male rebel without a clue, rebel without a cause, chip on my shoulder that I entered into university with. So, I could have easily just got A's in the courses I took, and that would have been like the neighbor I talked about. But without that extra guidance and direction, I wouldn't have achieved a sustainable change in a desired direction. That was the best strategy for sustainable change. So that's really important. Now, the next secret is a big one. And this is one, again, this is hiding in plain sight. Everyone knows it. No one thinks about it, or everyone denies it. And this is the secret, that it's easier to quit when no one special is watching or paying attention. I'm not talking about telling your spouse you're starting another diet, weighing in with your spouse, or going to meetings for weigh-ins. I'm talking about a one-on-one situation of guidance and support where trust is mutual, but it's easier to quit when you don't have that in your life when you don't have that someone who's trying to get you to the promised land. That's why there's no such thing as a professional team without a coach, right? That one special person is watching and paying attention and helping guidance and direction to put it all together to achieve one single aim, one single result. So a good coach doesn't let you quit on yourself, not because you're quitting on the coach. It doesn't matter to me in terms of it affecting my life. It matters to me that I don't let someone quit on themselves. So, and a good coach won't let you quit, just like Dr. Schneider wouldn't let me quit. And not because she ever added pressure on me. A good coach doesn't add pressure on you, at least not the way I work and not the way it was with Dr. Schneider. But because Big C Coach can give you the support tools to keep on keeping on. And information alone is never going to do that. Let me say that again. The Big C Coach can give you the support tools of guidance and direction to help you keep on keeping on, and information alone can never do that. Think about that. Nobody thinks about that. Think about how relevant, how important that is, how imperative that is to reaching and sustaining a worthy goal. You know, if I said that this before I started, if I did a post saying I'm going live tonight and I'm talking about the best strategy for sustainable physique transformation, and we're going to talk training and diet, I'd have 10 times the people that would listen to this kind of lecture. And that's the blind spot. They don't think they need to hear this kind of lecture, but it's always the people that negate these kinds of lectures are the ones who struggle because they're not making that connection. So very, very important. Now think about this and think about it deeply. Now you've got the comment right there on the screen. If information alone was enough, then you would only need Google to reach your goal. You wouldn't be confused. You wouldn't say there's so much conflicting information out there. You wouldn't struggle. Even a train on the tracks that knows where it's going still needs a conductor. Think about that. I'm 4 decades into this career of one-on-one coaching, 4+ decades for weight loss and physique transformation. And think about that level of expertise for a minute in terms of guidance and direction that it offers to someone rather than the information collector. I first lectured and taught weight training courses way back in 1983 after winning my first bodybuilding contest. And I taught these courses at academic institutions who had their own professors. I taught at Fanshawe College in London, Ontario, and Queen's University in Kingston, Ontario, where I did my undergrad and graduate education. I even had my own exercise show on cable television back then. So that's a long time from 1983 to now to be offering expertise, direction, and guidance to others. And I can tell you emphatically from this level of experience that going it alone is never going to compare to achievement with guidance and direction. I would have been lost without my thesis advisor in my undergrad and graduate years as a person and in the actual work that was assigned to me. So let's look at this a completely different way then. You're hearing me bark on, and a lot of people, this kind of lecture, they like or they hate or it turns them off. But listen, I want to make people think. There's too much rote learning out there. You think if you memorize something on a website, people do that all the time. They copy my Facebook posts, they copy my expressions, and they post them as if they were their own. But rote learning is never going to change you. The fact that you can mimic something doesn't mean you understand it or know it. That's what Einstein meant, that information isn't knowledge. But let's look at this in a completely different way. And let's remember, it's easier to quit when no one special is watching or paying attention. So let's talk about 2 kinds of people. And wouldn't you agree there are 2 kinds of people? Those who are good at realizing their goals and those who are good at realizing their excuses. And we all know people in both of those categories. Let's not pretend that we don't. Now, I can't imagine how many times I must have went to Dr. Schneider with any number of excuses that to me were legitimate obstacles in the way of my progress. But there are achievers and there are non-achievers, and you can never be both at the same time. And that's one lesson that she taught me, that all the sports coaches I had growing up never got me to actually internalize the way she could. If you are quick to make excuses for why you can't do or follow what needs to be done, then you're going to struggle. No way around it. But you can get off that merry-go-round anytime. You can always choose to become a different person than the one that makes excuses or the one who is always negatively unsatisfied with where you are. But you will almost always require third-party objective guidance and direction to do that and to accomplish that. That is a no-brainer. I always say, one of the constants in all my lectures and all these years that I've always said is, I wish more people who sought weight loss goals and physique transformation goals had a better background in sports and understanding sports and sports psychology, because then you see the relevance of the coach and the role of the coach and why they earn millions of dollars. You see how important that guidance and direction and structure and accountability is. So, and to always say, that person who is always negatively unsatisfied with where you are and who you are, if you're going to change that, that's going to absolutely 100% require getting outside your own head. Now, myself, where I'm at in life, I can't imagine being negatively unsatisfied with where I am or who I am. I just would not live that way. That would not be, life's too short. You get to my age, and especially the last few years that I have had, if you were someone unsatisfied with where you are and who you are, then you're not going to get through the most trying of times, believe me, and the things that knock you down that you don't even see coming. Those things extend far beyond training programs and diet strategies. But training programs and diet strategies, just like my thesis, changed who I was. Those things can underline the change, but they can't be the change agent. The change agent has to be you, and you can't do that until you get outside your own head. So you're never going to become that different person by just gathering more and more information. At some point, you're going to need a mentor, a leader, a coach, a directional change agent, as I say. But only you can make that decision and walk through that door into the next room. No one else is going to be able to do that for you. So that's something that you've got to consider. So two kinds of people, and let's keep going with this argument. If you're still with me, then kudos, because this is where a lot of people go, I don't want to be talked to like that. This is reality, folks. This is what I like doing. This is what I like talking about. Like, enough of, cutting people down for no reason, but also enough of the cheerleading for no reason. Let's stop giving little Johnny a lollipop because he brushed his teeth. Let's start expecting little Johnny to brush his teeth because that's what you should do. And as adults, if you want to reach a goal, then the process is that's what you should do. So along these lines of achievers and non-achievers, there's also subcategories. There's doers and there's dabblers, right? Doers do. They stumble, they fall, they get back up, they dust themselves off, they learn from the stumble, and they keep on doing and going after it. That's how you get somewhere. The dabblers, they'll try a little of this, a little of that, they'll information gather, or they'll go all in on some new shiny object, but only for a little while, till they dabble in that next thing, and then the next one after that. Dabblers, they're going to sit and listen, they'll watch videos, they'll read articles, they'll even show up at conferences and symposiums, but they seldom go from attendance to achievement because they think all they need to do is passively sit there and learn some new idea and new information, and yet they never really get anywhere. And within their dabbling are go-to excuses as to why this new way won't work for them after all, even though they were so excited about it just a minute ago. So what you have to do is you have to answer the question, which one are you? Are you a dabbler or are you a doer? And have you ever looked at yourself that way before and been honest about it? So which one are you more of? Because this is one of those things you can be a little bit of both. But you have to be the person who decides to be the change agent in your life. So very, very important. You have no idea how many people that I know of from back when it first started with me, all right, in the physique transformation game, way back in the early 80s to the mid 80s, where I started, and they're still chasing weight loss goals and physique transformation dreams. They're still going to the symposiums and the workshops and spending thousands of dollars to do so 20, 30 years later. Well, let me tell you something. Time is money too, and time is even more important than money as dreams slip away between your fingers. And it doesn't matter if your dream is big or if your dream is small. You don't even need to have a passion. If you like who you are and where you're at in life, that's good enough. But when you don't, to be chasing that something or have it be unsustainable, to have it and then have it slip through your fingers and be that same person chasing that same tail 20 and 30 years later makes absolutely no sense to me as an adult. I can't imagine anyone living that way who claims to be serious about that thing that they're chasing. So why sign yourself up for the stress of self-coaching that just leaves way too many doubts in your head? You got a clutter and a cluster, you know what, going on in your own noggin all the time, and then wondering why you can't reach your goal, which in turn makes it way too easy for anybody to find excuses to put the brakes on achieving that goal or a dream. You just put it on hold. It slips through your fingers once again. You rationalize once again, and you become the excuse maker once again. But what if the process wasn't as full of doubts and obstacles as you think it is? Wouldn't you be interested in that, given a history of making excuses or stopping and starting and stopping and starting? What value would you place on not staying in such a position of stagnation ever again? This is what boggles my mind. This is what keeps me up at night when I think about my clients and their struggles, or the clients that don't understand that they're their worst enemy, like Dr. Lorraine Schneider helped me understand about myself. So if time is the most precious commodity, then look at it this way. 1 year from now, you can either be further behind, you can be further ahead, or you can be stuck right where you are without learning anything new that is actually internalized to become a different person. And is that what you want for yourself? Because that's a question I ask a lot of people a lot of times, and their answers are right? It's like a recording that's been stuck on replay. So it's really important that people address these issues, and I wish more people would take them more seriously. You know what's funny is, of all the places I'll get asked to speak, it'll always be diet training, diet training, training, diet, diet training. No one ever wants to talk about that this is supposed to be a lifestyle that is itself a change agent. It's supposed to be something that's a lifestyle. And if so, then why aren't lectures like these more popular and in demand on the lecture circuit? No one ever asked me to do these kind of lectures. And yet, after 4+ decades of coaching, these are the lectures I do, because these are the traps that people fall into. All right. Things have changed from the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, 2010. Everything's changed. Social media has changed. Everything's changed. Knowledge base has changed. But people still stay stuck as they did in the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, 2010s. This is what I don't understand. Real coaching is an investment, not an expenditure. People say to me how expensive one-on-one coaching is, and I say, compared to what? Compared to feeling like you failed yourself over and over? Compared to having the same New Year's resolution every year, this time I'm going to do it? Compared to being confused about what to do at every turn? And especially compared to having years go by and wondering why you didn't get where you wanted to go, why you didn't be who you wanted to be? Compared to being, compared to what? Compared to being a dabbler and not a doer? Because the great insider truth is this: people seldom value what they don't pay for or invest in. And let me give you some stories here. And I'm going to get to your comments. I'm almost done, folks. So you know me, when I get on my tangents, I don't even look at, I forget there's even people in there. So I'm going to get to your comments in a second. So bear with me. I'm looking forward to your comments. But the greater truth is this: people don't value what they don't pay for or invest in. So you can do all the Google searches in the world, and you can surf all these experts for free on Instagram. Listen, I never cared about stocks and financial markets until my money was in them. Then I paid attention. And guess what? At university, I was the same way. Let me tell you a little story there. I came from a blue-collar background, and I ended up working in the same factory as my dad, and I absolutely hated it. And I only went to university because high school was a breeze for me. Aaron, I'm glad you're here because I wanted to use you as an example. So I'll get to you in the comments. So I went to university because I didn't even know I wanted to go to university. I just knew I didn't want to work in a factory the rest of my life. So this is what happened. I put myself through university, and because of that, I paid my own way at university. I showed up all the time to every class because my money was in it. But I went to school with a lot of people, Queen's University in Kingston. There's a lot of people from a lot of families with a lot of do-re-mi. I even, one of the classes I attended was with a prince of another country, like people, but they didn't pay for their education. So guess what? Friday morning classes, only an idiot went to Friday morning classes. Guess what? I went to Friday morning classes. I ended up teaching Friday morning classes when I got tutorials, and I demanded that the students show up. But here's the point. When they didn't have to pay for their education, it was all about frat parties and beer pong and all the things I did in high school. For me, my education was about education. Why? Because I was paying for it myself. I put the money down. I invested. People seldom value what they don't pay or invest in. And I've seen that ever since then. When I've done workshops, weekend workshops, when people pay to be there, and Aaron's been at all my workshops, the ones who were hosting that I would invite for free, they would either not show up or not even take a note, or they would say that was interesting, and I'd see them a couple years later, 20 pounds heavier, 30 pounds heavier. But the ones who attended and paid for with their own money, guess what? They didn't miss anything. They didn't miss a lecture. They didn't miss a workout. So people seldom value what they don't pay for or invest in themselves. And that's another thing that coaching, that's another reason why coaching is an investment and not an expenditure. And I'm glad that I never was able to take my education for granted, because I showed up for classes and did the reading, all the reading material. And like I said, I won scholarships, et cetera, because I was paying my own way. So it meant it was that serious to me. Giving someone else your hard-earned money in order to guide and direct you is actually one of the best ways to invest in yourself and achieving your goal, and one of the best ways, like I said, to invest in yourself. I don't know why I'm getting all emotional here, but so think about that. The coaching, oh, it's expensive. No, it's an investment. Think of all the professional sports summer camps out there, and you might not know of any because you're not into sports, but hockey camps, football camps, baseball camps, quarterback camps. There's a famous, you can look this up, Peyton Manning Passing Academy, where so many future pros come from. They all go to that camp. It doesn't matter how talented they are or where they're ranked in the draft, or they all go to Peyton Manning's Passing Academy and they invest the money in it. All of these places are where an investment is made for short-term guidance and direction. Why? To get better, to do better, and to be better. Boom. That's the most important thing. Wake up every day. I'm going to do better, be better, get better, but most importantly, be better. Doesn't that just make sense? Or you can continue thinking that you can Google your way to sustainable achievement. Am I right? So there it is. That's very, very important stuff. So instead, can you imagine how it would be if you actually got there, okay? And got there in a way that doesn't leave you exhausted, doesn't leave you obsessing, or doesn't necessitate you to obsess about it for the rest of your life. So many people get off on a wrong track because, and they just quit. They've achieved the result, but it slips through their fingers because they think they have to obsess about grams and carbs and calories and workouts and for the rest of their life. But someone's taught them incorrectly. They've got bad guidance and bad direction. So what would you do with all the extra energy and time and thought power you would have if someone else steered the ship for you? And in that process, you learn to become the achiever and leave behind the non-achiever. You become the doer, not the dabbler. All right. You become the achiever, not the excuse maker. What if you went from dabbler to doer? What kind of empowerment do you think that would nurture to your soul? That is what real one-on-one coaching is forged of. That's the very, very most important thing. Great comments I'm getting to. So from early on in my career, this I said, and the reason I believe in what I do and the reason I lectured about it If I could build a world-class physique, then anyone could do it. And I remember the first few years in the magazines and the lectures, I would get the same question all the time. Why you? Why were you able to achieve it when no one else from your little gyms or whatever could? And I said I was realistic about what it was going to take. And that was the only difference. It wasn't about magic workouts. It wasn't about, yeah, it led me to discovering innovation training and all the rest of these things. But I was serious about what was going to have to go into it. So at one time I struggled with not knowing the difference between the sizzle and the steak when it came to experts that could help me. And I understand that's even worse now with Insta famous, Insta idiots and all the rest of it. But that's something that you're going to have to differentiate from myself. But myself as a coach over 4 decades, I've worked with thousands of people at every age and physical type. I've designed methods to help all of them. And this includes helping myself as I transition from a hardcore competition bodybuilder to more mainstream clients. And I transition again to being aging specimen myself and all the changes that go along with that. Physique after 50, hard gainer solution. I don't have to worry about the right diet, the right workout program, because I have the education and the 4 decades of experience. Just like I took for granted about my own academic thesis advisor had herself. The reason she was so excellent at guiding me back then, what she brought to the table was what I bring to the table now. Decades of expertise academically and experientially that allowed her to be my guiding light. And that was the important thing. So imagine the freedom and peace of mind if you didn't feel it necessary to worry and stress over these things either. This is what is meant by the phrase, the devil's in the details. When these details torment and confuse you, then you're not getting anywhere that way. And that's what real expertise is. Not just what you can do for yourself, but what you can do for others and helping others become achievers and being a change agent for them in that process. That's the reward of one-on-one coaching. And the biggest gift you can give people is hope and belief in themselves. Expertise is the compass, like my academic advisor gave to me. But, one of the things about my academic advisor, what they say about real coaches and real experts is the clients, they won't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And that's an operating mantra for any good coach. And if I wasn't any good at changing anyone except myself, my 15 minutes of fame would have been up way back in the 80s. So very, very important there. So I'm still here and I'm still coaching and making a difference for people who have the temerity to sack up and look for real help. But I have, I think I have one more little thing to consider. And then we'll review. And then I'm going to and then I'm going to get to your comments. So I didn't mean to go on this long, but here's a little bonus secret for other coaches, because I'm come at this at like I'm saying, if you're not the one that struggles, but you coach people who do, this is just a little extra advice from someone like me who's been at this for so long. If someone comes to you and the first thing they do is start blaming other people from the minute they contact you, trust me, you can't help them. Look for comments like, I get no support at home. I tried all these other programs and they didn't work. I worked with Coach John Doe and that guy was terrible and I wasted my money, and on and on. So the first thing people do when they contact you is blame other people because they didn't reach their goal. If they come to you with a track record of constant blame on other people or outside circumstances for their repeated failures, you really don't want them as a client. You'll likely end up as the next person on their blame list anyway, not to mention their very energy vampire nature. So as a coach, look for people who take responsibility and ownership for their actions or inactions, or they are at least acknowledging they're finally ready to do so and they're done with the blame game. Invest in people who want to be achievers and who want to stop being excuse makers. So having said all that, what is the best strategy to reach and sustain your body recomposition goals? Let's look at the rehash, and then I'm going to get to your clients. So this was very, very important. So secret number 1, information is not knowledge. Stop chasing that tail because it is a tail. Habits are hard to change, so you may need an external change agent for guidance and direction. Number 3, it's easier to quit when no one special is watching or paying attention, or when your own money is not in the game. for sure, I would have packed it in with my thesis if my academic advisor wasn't there for me all along the way. So I cared about how much she knew because I knew how much she cared. That was a real important element as well, the trust factor. Number 4, real coaching is an investment, not an expenditure. And the bonus secret for other coaches, beware the blamers. So that's what I have in terms of the best strategy to reach and sustain your recomposition goals, body recomposition goals, is actually the best strategy is actually one-on-one coaching. No two ways about that. It's why I do it. I don't waste my time doing anything. I don't need to do that anymore in my life. So I'm pretty good that way. So thanks for bearing with me this long. I'm going to get to your comments. So hopefully, yeah. So hopefully people have been waiting patiently to get the comments in. So Perry's just saying these things take time. Expecting something other than that leads to program abandonment and all the excuses it support. Yeah, it's funny how impatience leads to, a lack of achievement. Patience is the deciding factor. So Perry's just following that up. Third party needs to be a real life human, as we said. And then, as well as myself, Mike has written a book. Mike Forrest has written a book on the habit space. You can go there and get Mike's book. Yeah, very, very important at the habit space. So Daniel's just saying, from a coach perspective, what's the hardest habit or attitude you've had to help someone break or change? Wow, that's I wouldn't say there's one hardest habit. It's whatever's hardest for that person. A lot of the times it's eating at night. A lot of the times it's emotional eating. A lot of the times it's unrealistic expectations. A lot of the times it is self-sabotage. A lot of the times it's other sabotage. The significant other in their life is sabotaging them constantly, or people at work are sabotaging them constantly. But there's always some habit that needs reforming. Very, very important. So yeah, let's look at that as well. So and there's research, Perry's just saying, there is actual research that shows that people who make their bed every day, it makes a difference in their life in terms of success, achievement, etc. So Daniel said he does that every day. I think he was referring then at being a dabbler. Yeah. So very, very important. Now here's Aaron. Hiring coach 13 years ago, one of the best decisions ever and money well spent. So here we got Aaron now in the Platinum Club at age 50, posting his wilderness workouts on the Able Files page, etc., etc. But Aaron's been with me 13 years and has transformed more than just his physique. And he can get into that another time, where he can share that personal information. That's up to him. So yeah, very, very important. Daniel's just saying, I learned how to ride motorcycles, and it was a huge investment, but it made me try way harder. Yeah, if you've got no skin in the game, why would you care, right? That just makes perfect sense, and I don't know why it doesn't make perfect sense to other people. So Sonia's just saying, getting a coach was definitely an invaluable experience for me. People don't even understand that it doesn't have to be a forever thing. It all depends on the mindset of the client. It takes as long as it needs to until you get it. And then some people, Sonia, think they've got it. Like I said, a lot of people have come back to me just recently, which is why I did this particular webinar. I couldn't believe all the people coming back to me that were like got off track because, yeah, they were, thought they could do it on their own, and then they just couldn't. So that's a very, very good point. So my hope is that more people will see this once we're done and share it and get people to start understanding that what they think are little things that get in the way of their achievement is actually things that aren't getting in the way of their achievement. So, or the things that they think they don't have to think about are the things they really should think about. Sorry, another comment just came in. So I guess some of the comments aren't getting off the screen. So hopefully that does that. So yeah, anyway, any questions, concerns, feel like sharing, get people to understand this stuff. it's valuable stuff that people need to consider, especially these secrets here that people aren't considering enough. Habits are hard to change. You're going to have to get outside your own head to change them. Information is not knowledge. It's easier to quit when no one special is watching, and real coaching is an investment, not an expenditure. It's not why, actually, like I said, in this age of information everywhere, people are still paying more and more money for coaching because it is that valuable for people who actually get it. So I hope you got it, and I hope it makes sense. Please share, let people comment, get the message out there. Also, I don't know if you follow me on Facebook or you're just watching this, but the notice from YouTube today was I finally passed 5 million YouTube views, which was pretty cool since I left YouTube for years. A long, long time ago, I was barely involved with YouTube. I left it, and I just recently went back to it to post these and other things. So that was pretty cool. I'm up to over 5 million views of my stuff on YouTube. So that's pretty good, but let's keep adding to it. So that's it for me tonight, folks. It looks like you're mostly all commented out. So hopefully this had value. If it did have value, then please hit the share button, hit the emoticons. And it's not just for me. I don't need the validation. It's what Facebook likes. So if we want to get more people engaged and more people coming and more people joining, then it's really important that we hit these emoticons that Facebook uses to gauge how important someone's stuff is, right? So until next time, that's the best strategy to reach and sustain your body composition goals. I hope it was of value to you. I'm just going to put this up there one more time so you can see that. Leave that up there. Write it down. Think about it. Give it some thoughts. And yeah, so yeah, Linda's just saying, she has people question why after 4 years she still has a coach. This puts words to it. I wouldn't even answer people like that, Linda. I mean, I have a client that's been with me since I started, been with me since 1994 or something. He's been with me. So yeah, a lot of people are never going to understand mentorship, never going to, I was lucky because I started playing organized sports at a young age. So I was always used to the notion of a coach and a drill sergeant and all the rest of it. But it wasn't until I had an academic thesis advisor that I really internalized the relevance and the importance. So good that you had someone like that, Linda. That's great. So that's it, folks. Look at those. Hopefully it all does well. You've seen it all. You've heard it all. And got another good one, sort of a corollary to this one for next week. And then soon I have the Coach Scott Abel metabolism experiment coming up as well within the next couple of weeks. So hopefully you'll be on board with that because I really want some participation with that. That's it for me. And I'll see you all in my next video or on Facebook sharing and talking and discussing. So see you all next time.